Greetings, my friends, and welcome back. Today, Tiny Pandora Productions is bringing you a nice no-blend cane. We do a lot of caning, and we do a lot of blending. And sometimes it's fun to make something out of some fun colors that retain their contrast and detail without a lot of blending. And that's what we'll do today. So I'm using the Souffle because it's my favorite caning clay. And that's Jade, Royalty. We're using sea glass, and that one is turnip and some canary and the white and black. So these colors are kind of my favorites, and I use them a lot in caning, and I'll show you why. We're going to start with some sheets, and that's really the best way to go when you're going to make cane, is just go ahead and make your material in advance. I've got the white at a really thin setting, and I really haven't even decided where I'm going to place it. It's not part of the design as it stands now, but I always have a lot of sheets available. See, the yellow's a little thicker because it's going to be more prominent in the design, but not too prominent, because yellow can take over your design very quickly. So when I say a little thicker, that's about a number 3 setting. And I'm going to take a piece of it and roll it up to make a snake. We want to have snake material around all the time because you can form it into triangles and leave it round, but you don't want to stop and make it. So I kind of emphasize in my videos to make your sheets and your snakes ahead of time. And I have a drawer full of snakes and sheets in all kinds of colors, and that way when I want to make cane, it's not quite so time intensive. So we'll set this aside in a minute. Just make it kind of okay and symmetrical. You'll see that if you start with a even sheet, it's easier. Now these colors I'm going to make into uniform canes that will then combine. So to achieve that, I've just taken the whole package and made these rectangular blocks. I'm going to flatten them out and make sure they're all starting out, fairly uniform. And that way when we go to put them together, it won't be so hard to match them up. So I'm going to take my turnip and I'm going to embed some shapes into it. I'm using these rods that I had made. I've got square ones, I call them square benders. And then I've got round ones over there too, the cane benders. And I had them made because I'm always wanting to make shapes, and I can't find anything to do it with. So you can get those, I'll give you a link. Anyway, I'm going to make 2 indentations in here with the corners of that square one, and I'm going to make some of my yellow into triangles to drop into the channels that I've created. So it's pretty simple. You see that you're getting a lot of contrast already, and you're getting a lot of shape and interest without tons of work. What I usually do with something like this, is that big a piece of yellow especially, is break it up. And that's what some of those black sheets are for. And I have them on a very thin setting. They're about a number 5 on my machine. And I'm going to drop in little pieces into these slits. And later on you'll see in the design how all of these things pick up the eye. They give you something to look at. They're not real in your face. That's why they're thin like this. But I think you'll like the fact that you can drop in lines anywhere, because caning really is just about line and fill. It's what is the big part, what is the little part, and you'll see that more and more, when you make cane. If I'm putting that line in, I'm going to allow it to bend over the edge a little bit. I just like the shape that it creates, but you could cut it off flush, or you could even make it longer. And these decisions are the most fun part. That's, the whole point of this is to customize it, and as you go you'll see beauty in what you're doing, just the way you're doing it. So let's keep that in mind. Now we're not worried about this being perfectly symmetrical right now. It may be fairly, but the symmetry is going to come when these pieces are cut and recombined many times. So don't worry too much about it. Just make it look pretty, and we'll go on to the next thing as time goes by. That's good enough. Yeah, it looks fine. So we're going to take our yellow and we're going to use it again in our next little cane. These individual components, are really subject to a lot of interpretation. So, have at it the way you want to. I'm using the next size cane bender there, the square bender actually, to make a channel in these. We're going to do several sizes of channels, and that's another thing you want to remember. If all the channels matched up, that can be really boring. So you're wanting to drop in different sizes, different shapes, and break them up. And you'll really like that in your caning. It's just a lot more fun. So we trim it off just to see if it's the way we want it to be. You shouldn't have a lot of waste here, but hang on to your spare clay, but that would make beautiful Natashas. Just even it up. And I'm going to drop some more lines into this. And I'm doing that with a round rod. That's the itty bitty one. That's the 1/8 inch. And it makes really cool channels. And you can see I put some black logs into them. Don't get too mad at me when I jump around and cut parts off, but I'm not kidding. I mean, even editing it, if it's boring for me, it's going to be boring for you. So, you can see I put black in those yellow lines, and I just cut part of it out because, who wants to see me, put snakes in there. So this one's going to have this kind of piece in it. It's going to be a round one. But first I'm going to put a sheet of yellow in it because I want to make a line and some fill there. Now that sheet could be black. That would be really cool. But I'm going to put the yellow in there because in the end we're not going to have a ton of yellow. So I'll just kind of put it in here and there, not try not to overdo it too much. And I'm using my next to the largest, that's the 1/2 inch rod, to settle it down into the groove and then fill the groove up with the yellow. And you're going to want to trim it off. I like to flip them over when I trim them because it's kind of smeary, isn't it, when you're trying to cut from the top. So just do it like that. You'll see that the souffle doesn't stick together so much, so when you make cuts like these, you can kind of peel them apart, and then you get a little more mileage out of your colors. They don't get so mixed up. Now this edge, I really thought about it. Do I want it to overlap all the way? Do I want it flush with that top? And I decided to kind of go in the middle of the road. So what I did was I just cut it partially over the edge. And those are your decisions to make. As you make your canes and do it more and more, you'll see what happens with pieces that extend, and you'll see what happens with pieces that are flush. And it's quite a big difference sometimes. Now in this one, I was really worried about the shape that was made by that whole piece being over the edge, and I was afraid I would kind of regret it. So you'll see later on I'm going to adjust that out of there and just make it a little bit less prominent. So as we make more grooves in the material and we add more lines, all these little things are going to be really small in the end, and then they're going to make your piece pop, because as we reduce this and it gets smaller and smaller in size, the black against the yellow creates enough contrast that you don't lose all these little details. But you want to be aware of that. If that was just color against color without the yellow and without the black, you probably would just reduce the life right out of it. So it's probably happened to you before. It's certainly happened to me. So here I'm going to indent that black down into there, start making some wavy lines and stuff, and seeing how I feel about how it looks. I want to retain those areas that have the black in them, and I'm going to fill them. So we're back to the concept of line and fill, line and fill. What do you want to keep? What do you not want to keep? What do you want? What shape do you want to stay in the cane? And which one are you going to blend in some other way? Our last one here, we're making, the most indentations, because you see it's kind of getting progressively smaller. We had the 1, the 2, the 3, now we've got the 4 indentations. We're dropping our snakes in there, and we'll make a whole bunch of detail in this one. It's by putting the yellow over the top and settling it down into those grooves. And I'm going to add black there too, because I'm kind of worried that those will just melt away as we reduce it and compress it. So I've got my black sitting here anyway. I'm going to take down that edge a little bit like we talked about. It was a little bit too much. And drop black snakes into those lines. And you can, of course, stop and start anywhere here, but you see what I'm saying. Your eyes, your hands, you're going to know what to do because you're going to see, well, this is too much of one thing. This is not enough of another thing. So I've got all my little blocks. I've kind of just, made them the same size and stacked them up. There's a million ways to stack this up. I just like it like that. So I'm going to push it together into a triangle. And this is kind of that Pandorification thing, it was fine as a square, but it's pretty predictable already, right? So we want to take away the predictability. We want to add the mystery to the canes by changing their shape even when they're already done. These are some rods I've got laying around. That's what I wanted to tell you. You don't have to buy stuff from me, really, from anywhere. You could probably find those things, at the flea market. It's just that as time went by, I kept needing these certain things, and, I finally had them made. And, in order to get something made in a factory, you got to get a whole bunch. So, now you can buy them from me because, I have a whole bunch. So I dropped a black line into that channel that I made. And you may say, oh my God, Pandora, you're ruining this cane. But honestly, just a bunch of lined up shapes did not interest me. I don't think you're going to like it either. So that's why you want to feel free to really, really trash them, really adjust them a lot and have fun with them and be brave because you'll love your end result, honestly. Then bringing that together, I'm going to make sure that I'm maintaining some symmetry in those registration lines, which are, every external line you can see is a registration line. And I've already got, a lot of detail in this. It's still big, and there's still a lot of stuff we're going to do with it. But I've already got all kinds of stuff going on, and really, I didn't have to make and wrap a million canes and stuff and reduce them. You could just drop them in the holes, I don't know. I think it's a lot easier. So you can see I reduced some of it off camera, and I've tried to keep my lines as straight as I can. They're not perfect. You just do them as well as you can. And I've got it in these sizes to work with. That's about a 4-inch strip on the smallest one. I'm going to cut it in half and put it together. And after I put it together, I'll reduce it a little bit. And I'll show you what I want to do with this one. So that's matched up. You could take it that way. You could take it this way, right? You can take it any of those ways. You've got 3 sides to work with, so, that's completely up to you. I usually choose which is going to be the bottom and which is going to be the top based on the fact that I'm probably going to really flatten this out a lot along the way. So if there's something you really want to see, put it in the middle because, it might get pretty flattened out afterwards. So I put that together, taking it down a little bit, and I'm going to cut it again because this one's going to be a square. And I want some little squares in this project. This is going to be jewelry, and that's why I'm making the scale so small. We're going to make beads and stuff. You need a lot of detail, but you need it to be little. So that's my square, and I really like it. But I don't want all this cane to look the same. And that's why I never really work with a big cane all in one piece. So this one I want to be kind of zigzag. I'll show you what I mean. I'm going to cut it in half also. Put it back together. But this one I'm going to put together a different way. So I'm going to flip one over like that. And it just changes the nature of the whole thing. See how my registration marks are no longer lined up? I don't want them to be because I want to make something new. And the neat thing is that obviously all these components are going to coordinate because they're the same cane, They're just changed a lot. And that's just the fun of it. Take your time with this. How much fun is that? That one's going to be put together in 3 pieces. The square will remain square, and then that one and the triangular one will be put back together. You'll see it. And there's my big one. I've always got a little hoard around. I never cut all the cane at once or reduce all the cane at once because I've been staring at this one and I want to put like a little kind of like a, I don't know, it's kind of like a Nike swoop in it. It's like reminds me of a shark fin, kind of. When it goes together, it looks more like a horseshoe, but so I want to put a snake in that little channel that I made. And I'm doing that because, this is going to be my kaleidoscope. And I don't want any big gobs of turquoise, just stuck in there, real gobs of anything. So I just broke it up with a little fin. And you'll see it kind of adds a lot to the design in the end. And you can do that at any point, okay? You could add the black in that bottom area. Anywhere you want to, you could add accent. And feel free to do that. So that's going to be cut in 6 pieces for our kaleidoscope. And we'll put it back together. You want to get these, pretty accurate because you don't want a lot of waste on the edges. And it's hard to line them up when they're not cut, well. So take your time on making those marks in it before you start. That's what I always do. And this may seem like it's not a very big cane. It's a huge cane because it's going to be beads. So you figure, oh my gosh, it's going to be a lot smaller, to be the right size, to be 2 halves of a bead, which of course will go over a, scrap ball. So I'm going to go ahead and reduce it. I've got these caps that I also had made because it was the same deal. I was cutting up coffee can lids, but I couldn't see through them. I didn't know if I was straight or not. I used crystal light lids and stuff like that. It just got to be, kind of hard to find what I needed at any one time. So what you do with these caps is see how you push down there? You're making in the end kind of a barbell shape, and I'm not kidding, you can get them really small without any distortion, and you don't lose any of that part. You don't have that sucking in thing. In the end, you just chop it off. If I'd let that cool off a little bit, it wouldn't even have pulled off to the side, but I wasn't very patient. So we've gone from big to small without too much heartache. And I'm going to take this round piece I cut off and I'm going to make something a little bit different out of it. I like it in this form, but I need it to be square. And I spent kind of a lot of time in my life pinching up the corners of round objects and trying to make them square, and honestly I like to do it like this. So I created these little square pairs, and they're for people who maybe don't need squares for other reasons, but they need them for this because it's really hard to take something round and make it square without just tearing up the design. And the whole point of this operation is to make a nice lined up sheet that you'll see in the final project. So, using circles, placing them side by side is always going to have those triangular gaps in between. But when you square up a round cane, you can now, lay it out endlessly. And that's pretty much what we're going to do. I'm going to take that, roll over it, make sure all of my corners are as sharp as they can be. And that's how easy it is. These are 3/4 inch. And I'm going to take this resulting square and cut it in half. Put it back together. And see, now I can line it up. I can make endless strips, bracelets, things like that. In this case, I made a collar necklace and just put those nice continuous strips over a form. So I hope you've enjoyed this. Come back and see me again. Bye-bye.